In a world where negativity, toxicity, and hatred runs rampant, two superheroes. What? Oh, not superheroes? So like two regular heroes? Not even regular heroes? Just two dudes? Sure, whatever. It's your script. Two nerds who are sick of toxic fandom have made it their goal to rid the world of negativity, 1 hour at a time.
Welcome back to another week of Pop-timistic. I am your host, Brent, and not as always, I have with me Zach. Who? If you have listened to our podcast at all, you've probably heard Zach's name at least 15 to 20 times because we mention him pretty consistently.
I counted. It was actually 12. Jeez.
Oh, wow. Oh, no. Well, let's get our stat checker guy out here. Didn't realize that was going to happen. This is
the Pop-Tart calculator king. Or the Pop-Tart Poindexter. There you go.
Yeah, I like that. Like a little abacus just counting away. I like that a lot.
Excuse me, he's been on exactly 20 times.
This is already going to be fun. See, I'm already excited for this. This is going to be great. Yeah. So if you guys are not familiar with Zach has, two podcasts that I thoroughly enjoy that are... I would say, I don't want to say the opposite of our podcast because I don't think you're a negative podcast. I would say that you are a long form, deep dive podcast where we are surface level dick jokes here. So,
yeah.
Bally Review and the Real Nerds podcast, which I want to talk to you about both of these quite in depth, but first, I want to ask you what's bringing you joy right now.
What's bringing me joy? Wow. Yeah. A good question. And one that's kind of been answered in our pre-show chatter.
Yes.
For any of you who may not know me very well, there's like a few things you can know about me that we'll learn about today. But one of them is that I'm a huge Halloween fan. Huge Halloween fan. And tomorrow we are getting Halloween Kills after a year of delays, courtesy of that dastardly COVID virus, just the bane of my existence. And I will tell you that the excitement around this for me is fever pitch. I am not expecting the same miracle that we got out of the Halloween reboot, which was I did not expect that reboot to be that good.
So good.
I was expecting, hooray, I'm getting another Halloween movie. I did not expect what I got out of it.
Yeah.
So that being said, anything else I get is kind of gravy at this point.
Absolutely.
So what's bringing me joy is that, like, you know, I like my Marvels, I like my superhero films, I like my my sci-fi, my genre stuff. But I love horror.
Yes.
Somewhat even more than I like Marvel films to an extent. DC is as hit or miss for me at times, but I find something positive about every one of them in some form.
Oh,
or fashion.
absolutely,
like Batman v Superman. I like Ben Affleck in it. You know,
yes.
But the Halloween franchise is kind of like that's the one that when the lights start popping on for that, I get very excited.
Yeah, hell yeah.
And this one in particular, we're getting this something that I never thought they'd kind of fully bring back in a way that makes sense for a plot. So like in Halloween 4, there is a mob that goes after Michael Myers in the town that's left. It's very much like a they portray Haddonfield as this weird backwater town in Halloween 4. Yeah. And they're all like in the back of pickup trucks and they're pissed and they got shotguns and whatnot and they're being led by Bo-Star. And they're not being led by Bo-Star. Bo-Star's trying to stop that mob.
Yeah, that's right.
And but in this one, it looks like that the collateral damage set upon by Michael 40 years ago and now on this night is bringing the whole town to a head of just like, no, the law has literally done nothing to take out Michael Myers, so we're going to do it ourselves. And it's funny because like all the press leading up to it, Jamie Lee Curtis has been wonderful at giving interviews, and she talked about how it's interesting that they had written this script already prior to what happened earlier this year. With the mob being led, and now we're getting this. So it's interesting how the films are unintentionally diverging into the current culture. Which is not necessarily what I want out of a Halloween movie.
That's fair.
I mean, because it made me realize, like, it's just like, it's kind of cool that the Halloween franchise could do that. I don't necessarily want it every time, because, like, if you try to do that with Jason, I have no idea how that works. You could do it with Freddy. It'd be very easy.
Easily.
Especially within the context of the last 4 to 5 years. But and I don't particularly want that reboot, because I think we technically got it with the Nightmare on Elm Street remake in 2010.
That's accurate.
Yeah, so but this one also is going to have Tommy Doyle leading the mob, and the only thing that that makes me sad is that Tommy Doyle's not being played by the original actor, whereas the actor who played Little Lindsay Wallace is returning, and part of it I feel like has to do with the fact that, well, she does have cachet name because she's got the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills in her back pocket. The little girl who played Lindsay Wallace is on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills.
That's right. Yeah.
I don't watch that show, so I'm just going to assume that she's the most positive character on that show.
I would think so. It doesn't. The title doesn't give it much hope. It's
No, but I refuse to believe that the girl who played Lindsay Wallace didn't grow up to be anything but kind and decent,
precious and wonderful.
Exactly, wonderful. But I don't know what the full deal is with the kid who played Tommy years later. I've seen him in interviews. He seems like he's had positive experiences with it. Maybe he just doesn't like to act anymore. But you got Anthony Michael Hall playing Tommy.
Yeah.
It's going to bring you something. So, there's a lot to be excited for. I'm going to get an hour and 40 minutes of thrills, kills, and spills tomorrow. So I'm super excited. So,
Heck
enough joy to bring into the world, my friend.
Yes. I'm going to go in that same vein, too, because my wife and I are very into the month of October, and we very much so enjoy all things spooky. And, I enjoy more so than she does. She'll watch occasionally a spooky thing with me. Okay. But it's not, like she really loves Quiet Place. Like that's right up her alley. She's watched The Strangers, didn't like it.
That's fair. That movie's terrifying.
It is, I would say, probably the scariest movie I've ever seen, because it feels so plausible.
Because you were home.
Yep. Yeah. Jesus. I don't think anyone ever saw that movie in the theater. So but everyone rented it, and everyone thought they were going to have sex with their girlfriend, and then everyone got too scared to have sex with their girlfriend. So
you're correct, because I didn't see it in the theater, and now I don't remember why I didn't, but I worked at a movie theater at that time that was showing it, so I don't remember if it was a situation where there was other. My horror pedigree back then was like watching stuff on DVD for the most part, because that was just where I would go to, and I was really kicking into the 70s and 80s. Although around this time was also when I first started getting into Eli Roth stuff, but which I talked about on the Punk Rock Horror podcast recently, and that's like, it's interesting how those films have evolved into this weird controversy amongst horror fans. Like, I'm just like, he's no different than any other director working, but The Strangers is one that I got to a year after it came out, and I was very unsettled by it. So I'd understand if she didn't like that. Like, that's an intense watch. Even if you're a hardcore horror fan, I'm just like, no, I'm sorry.
Agreed.
These guys have no motivation. It's just like 80 minutes, and you are really set in that house, and that relationship kicking off at the beginning is your crux for like, we've got to care about these guys in the house.
Oh my God.
Jason. See, Anthony just talks about Jason. I'm here. We're here talking about them.
I'm getting chills just talking about this movie. It's been so long since I watched it now, though, because it's just one of those ones that as I've gotten older, my imagination has not gotten any less. And so now it's just more creative and wakes me up in weird ways. So I'm like, I can't watch that movie unless it's like broad daylight, and like maybe not even then.
You know what, you can desensitize you from it a little bit is The Strangers Pray at Night, the sequel that they did.
It's
not as good as the first one.
I'm sure.
I liked it a lot, but it's not as good as the first one. And I think part of it is that it's very colorful as a movie. So they lose some of the dredge and they play a lot with style. So as a result, it's a little bit stagnant there. But it still has the same punch, which I appreciate. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's... You've got to go into it knowing what you're getting into.
Yeah, absolutely. I think stylistically in the first one, with like a lot of the long shots of just empty space behind Liv Tyler, was like so effective. And they use so much space of like, oh, someone's going to pop out right here. And then there's no one there.
Yeah.
But then you see like it's oh God, I love that. It was so fun to watch, but it's also terrible to watch and awful to watch, and no one should watch it. But the other thing I was going to say that I love about the month of October, especially now, is I feel like we have a lot more mix of comedy and horror happening over the last, I'd say like 10 years, maybe.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't say this one's horror at all. This is all comedy, but What We Do in the Shadows, that's one that my wife and I have watched like every year now since it's come out.
Right.
And then, oh gosh, what's it called? I can't believe I'm forgetting the name of it. It's Dale and Tucker versus
Tucker
Evil.
and Dale versus Evil.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my God, I love that movie. But that combination of mixing horror and comedy together has become one of like my all-time favorite things. It's just such a silly thing to see like ridiculous, maybe not the gore porn as much, but like these situations just turned upside down to where they're not scary anymore and they're just funny, and I love it.
It's interesting that we're in a cycle now within the last 5 years where the comedy has become one with the terror, and we're still having that divide and separation. But I thought about this today as I was doing my daily horror watch today. So today I chose Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. Which is a seminal horror classic and seminal comedy classic. And I had to remind myself, like, is this labeled as a horror movie? Because I'm doing this in conjunction with the Real Nerds podcast, like, because we're all doing the challenge, and two of my co-hosts are trying to beat each other with 2 or 3 movies a day, and I'm just steadily pacing myself at one until I do a whole marathon on a day off, because I'm not married with a kid and I don't have the same workload as Brad, so I'm going to sweep underneath them, but you can't tell anybody that. But yeah, like that movie, I'm in watching it and re-examining all the frames. For every moment that Bud and Lou are doing something comedic, there is something within the camera work and something within the blocking and the execution of that film that is still playing to the horror trope in an effective way. So in a sense, it doesn't necessarily take the scares out, but it complements the scare. Yeah. Which is what I feel Tucker and Dale did very beautifully, as What We Do in the Shadows is very much leaning into the comedy.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
But it's using imagery of the grotesque. Specifically with the Nosferatu character.
God. Pizza,
yes. It's been a while since I've seen What We Do in the Shadows.
Like I said, we watch it every year, so I know all the words.
My go-to Taika Waititi is probably Hunt for the Wilder People, but it's not to be elitist or anything. I really love that movie, and I love Sam Neill in it. But
Sam Neill in anything is.
I got introduced to that 2 years ago, and I was just like, "This is blowing my mind." And Jojo Rabbit's really good too. But the horror comedy realm, like it has been able to expand better. And I think Jordan Peele found a good hybrid with Get Out and Us in that vein, to a point where, like one of the reasons Us and Get Out were my favorite movies of the years that they came out is because they were both chilling me with their ideas, and I had never laughed that hard in a movie that year. And Us found a way to do it for both, where that final shot, that helicopter shot of a spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't seen Us, the helicopter shot at the end with everybody holding hands is the funniest slash most unsettling thing I've ever seen in my life.
So good.
It's one of those instances where you're sitting in the theater and going like, oh, we're fucked.
Oh God, yeah, I love that movie. I haven't seen Get Out still, so that's a problem that I need to fix. But
You'll like it. But you were talking about the horror comedy realm, and there's something here that brings you kind of joy, like that you've picked up in recently.
Yeah. I guess I feel like I've just never appreciated the mixture before as much as I do. And maybe it's just because my humor has gotten darker as I've gotten older. And so I'm like more accepting of like, oh, these are very funny jokes about death and how we just shouldn't take death as serious as we do. Like, I don't know. It's like, that makes me happy. You know, it's like, it's fine. It's great. Like,
that's how you confront your fears, my friend. You take control of the monster.
Oh, and I used to be like super afraid of death, and like, guys, I'm not anymore. So I'm not saying that's the movies, but I'm just gonna say, watch these movies, and you won't be afraid anymore. It's fine.
Wonderful.
I'm not a doctor, but you can take my advice like I'm a doctor.
Yeah. Speak for yourself. I'm still afraid of death at every corner.
That's why
I listen to something like Pop-timistic to remind me that the world is good.
The world is good. The world is good. All of it. Even the ground that we sleep in when we're dead.
Exactly.
So anyways. So that's what brings us joy. That was already a great conversation. I'm already happy. This is already the best podcast.
I'm excited. This is so much fun. I like this. This is nice. I don't always get to talk about all this stuff. So
yeah. No, and I love it. Well, and I mean, I have ADHD, so if you go off on tangents, my brain is all up for the ride. It's like, yeah, let's go every which way we can. I kind of want to move into asking you some questions about content creation and like your past and where you come from when it comes to where you got your passion and all that. So I think first and foremost for me, I would say, obviously, well, I won't say obviously, but it seems, as someone who doesn't know you that well, that knows you through podcasts, that movies seem to be the biggest piece of pop culture that has influenced your path and choices in your
oddly enough, it's actually Fabergé eggs. So the movies are just a side hustle. No.
I thought, see, I knew that big golden egg in the background was something.
Yeah. When you learn more about Cary Grant and realize that he loved him so much.
Then you gotta.
Yeah, exactly. You're be correct. That's they've been my only consistent friends since I was
your
a kid.
Main squeeze. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's fair.
They don't fail me.
Well, not yet. You know, hopefully it stays that way. So for me, I like to try to think back about what is the first movie that really sticks in my mind as something that influenced me towards such a heavy gravitational pull of that interest. So do you feel that there is one movie or maybe a genre movie that formed this passion of film for you?
For film in general, I'm susceptible like any other kid of our age. It's Star Wars. Star Wars was the thing that got me involved in looking beyond just the movie itself. We are of an age where we still had the VHSs, and we are among the last to grow up with the VHSs before the special editions came out.
Yeah.
So we had the VHSs with the Leonard Maltin introductions, and we skipped through those first, but then I would watch them.
Yeah.
I didn't fully understand every single thing they were discussing at the age of 5 and 6. But what's wonderful about the special editions, it's one of the few things that's wonderful about the special editions. Well, that's harsh. I don't care. It's what it's going to be. Anyway, let's stick to the positive here. Is that when they were talking about how they cleaned everything up, I learned about film restoration, oddly enough, from George Lucas, because before the digital effects went in, they did clean up the negative of Star Wars, and they showed the process of cleaning up the negative, which I found interesting at the age of 6 and 7. Right. So Star Wars was like the overall, oh my God, movies exist. This is amazing. Up until then, it was mainly cartoons.
Right.
And Disney and Looney Tunes specifically.
Oh, yeah.
And I think, as an adult, I lean more towards Looney Tunes for my sensibility, but Disney knows how to win my heart in the correct ways when it wants to.
Well, it's because they've bought everything.
I'll tell you, oddly enough, the things that still entrance me about Disney are the things that it started out with and not the things that it's acquired in purchases.
Yes.
Because since the Fox logo is still on something like Young Frankenstein, technically it's not a Disney movie in my mind.
Correct. I agree.
That was a studio, you see, kids, that had over 90 years, several years of history that Disney has decided to taking away the Fox name. And but the positive thing that they have done with that is that they have created a streamlined home for a lot of those films where they weren't always completely accessible. Hopefully it means they'll give some more Blu-ray attention. I have my doubts on it, but we'll see.
It'd be nice.
But if we're talking about like a genre, that kind of kicked me in the pants, my grandfather was a very influential figure in my life, and I've told this story on various different podcasts, whether it's Pop Culture Brews or Jamie Dyer's show that's coming soon. And my grandfather got me into two key things that set me on my path, which was Golden Age radio and black and white movies.
Yeah.
And that really starts with Casablanca. Mm-hmm. So Casablanca is really the movie that kicks off my interest in the genre beyond just a mere like watch this because it's a classic. And at the same time, in that span, he gets me into the Sherlock Holmes radio tapes, which then leads me to discovering old time radio, which leads me to discovering old time radio comedy.
Yeah,
that's my main squeeze when it comes to like anything outside of film is old time radio comedy.
Really? Okay, cool. Hell yeah.
I'm very, very entranced by comedy of the 30s, 40s, and 50s.
Yes,
more specifically the 30s and the 40s. But the love of Casablanca opened the floodgate for me to love movies of the past.
Yeah.
Prior to that, I'd gotten into Universal monsters, but for me, the monsters were not. It had nothing to do with Golden Age Hollywood for me as a kid. It had everything to do with monsters.
Yeah.
So, another thing like here. This is Welcome to Brent and Zach talk about their childhoods. You remember the Mummy VHS?
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
That is one of the most influential VHS tapes of all time.
100%.
That has not only one of the great films of 1999 in it. It also has ads for the Universal Monsters and for the Alfred Hitchcock series. And I'd already discovered the Universal Monsters prior to the Mummy, but the Alfred Hitchcock ad was one that I had seen, and I was like, what the heck is this movie where a bird just crashes into a phone booth?
Yeah.
And that opened a floodgate as I got a little older, discovering the birds and then Psycho, and then I went down a whole Hitch ride. And but it all really starts with Casablanca. It's a simple story of good versus evil. No better villain to go up against than the Nazis, which I mean, even before what we've experienced in the more trying times, Casablanca has always resonated in that sense of learning to fight for the right reasons.
Right.
There's a secret brilliance in there that's named Claude Rains as Louis, and watching him turn from like this acquiescing jerk of the prefect of police into a person who's willing to just throw his trashy Vichy wine in the garbage and totally let Rick get away with the murder of Major Strasser, and then they just walk off into the fog, and they're just like, "Oh, dude, they're gonna go fight. They're gonna go fight fucking Nazis. That's what they gotta do.
They're gonna do it.
They're gonna do more.
This
was just killing.
So many Nazis gonna die.
Killing the guy who inspired the look of the Joker is only the first step. You see what happens? They keep going further. So that was really the catalyst and the kickoff. And I guess one of the more influential films beyond that would probably be Jackie Brown, which is that's my favorite film of all time, primarily because it's the movie I want to make. If I could make a movie that cool with that much resonance emotionally, I'd be satisfied with my life.
That's
fair. I hope I never make that kind of movie so that I can keep trying for that goal.
Yeah. You gotta have something to work for, you know. I mean,
exactly. Not everything about it holds up. But it's one of Quentin's best films, and I'm amongst our little small group. I'm probably the only like Quentin Tarantino white. So, but those are the things that kind of got me pushed to where I am. So
absolutely, I love that. So I mean that that kind of leads directly into the next thing I'm going to ask, because as I had mentioned, there's two podcasts that I know of that you're on. I don't know if you're on more. I know you guest on podcasts nonstop, but I mean, tell me which came first, Ballyhoo or Real Nerds?
Real Nerds came first.
Okay.
So Real Nerds, when I was still in film school with Anthony, I guested on Real Nerds when their main review was The Incredible Burt Wonderstone, which I love. I still love that movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not just for the memory of working with them for the first time, but also that movie has got a really nice dark streak up its own butt, and I love it. Like the ending is genius. But and then I came back for another episode, and then I kept coming back a couple more times. Went to LA, came back, guested a couple more times, started trying to fight my alcoholism. And, in the midst of that fight, got asked to guest host Real Nerds while Ryan was on paternity leave when he had his kid, Kellen. Okay. And then went back into fighting my alcoholism.
As you have to, you know.
Came back to the fold a little bit more regularly in the end of 2015 and into 2016. By 2017, I was coming back so much that they said, "Do you want to just come on full time?" Yeah. So I started podcasting with them full time. About 2 years into doing that full time, I quit alcohol. So that was in 2018. So I've been sober now since July of 2018. I
love that. Every time I hear it, I love that.
Yeah, I appreciate that people have found inspiration out of it. For me, it's just amazing. Like, thanks, guys. I just decided not to be sad one more day.
Well, hey, we're all glad you're not sad.
I do appreciate it. But yeah, Real Nerds was the catalyst, and one of the things that it did was, there was a lack of discipline that I had that had grown in me during my alcoholic phase, and some of that has to do with personal trauma, some of that has to do with just motivation, but a lot of it had to do with trauma stuff related. And what the Real Nerds did was put me back in a routine of watching movies on a weekly basis. Prior to a lot of my nonsense, I worked in a movie theater since I was in high school. I would go to the movies 3 to 4 times a week. I was seeing everything that would come out.
That's awesome.
And working in a movie theater, it meant I exploited the shit out of that free ticket policy.
Oh, absolutely.
I showed no mercy. One night I worked at Regal, and I got everybody a bunch of free tickets to Scott Pilgrim versus the World to watch it opening night. After I'd already seen it both at the midnight and 2 months before it was released, when we went to San Diego Comic-Con and got an advanced screening of it.
Oh, wow.
That was with Anthony and I's mutual friend Matt Willix, and I sat out in the hot San Diego sun to watch that movie early.
Nice.
And I had really no idea what a Scott Pilgrim was. I just knew I liked Edgar Wright, and I walked out of that movie going like, "That was amazing." Like,
you're like, "Now I like Scott Pilgrim too."
I enjoyed this concept.
Yes.
So they put me back on a regimen, man. Like they got me back into the movies each week, and it helped me rekindle my love of film, but also learning to re-engage with my ability to read film. And in that time, I got reconnected with Golden Age Hollywood. A big kicker in that is while I was working to get sober, I discovered The Secret History of Hollywood and Attaboy Clarence, which are 2 podcasts run by the same person, Adam Roach, out of the UK. And the first thing I found of his was his 2-hour episode on Sherlock Holmes and the history of the 14 films that Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce did. And it really captured back to the spirit of a 10-year-old learning about Sherlock Holmes on the radio, because they were both on the radio and film series. So it engrossed me. It caught me at the right moment when I was going through the death of my grandfather at that point. So it was a nice catalyst to kick things off. And at that time, he started doing a series on Hitchcock, so I got involved in that.
Nice.
And just became a huge fan. And so he kind of helped rekindle my love of Golden Age Hollywood, which I had kind of I didn't put it off to the side, but I was always just like, well, I'm into new films too. You know, I'm not just a black and white guy.
It's not just Golden Age, guys. I like it all.
Guys, I like Paul Thomas Anderson just like the rest of you dorks. And so it really got me back into rewatching it. So I went back through my basic stuff, like my gangster movies and my monster movies and my comedy films, specifically. Like really going back into the career of Jack Benny was a big catalyst for it. Because Jack Benny's been my hero since I was a kid. And so along with the real nerds, because I kept talking about Golden Age Hollywood films and whatnot, it just seemed natural that would happen. But before it, I didn't have any gumption to really do my own podcast. I was fine with doing Real Nerds on my own. Yeah. But two things happened. One is that I had finished a series of articles on Clint Eastwood, which is I don't love the way I reviewed those movies in the first 2 years of doing that series, because I was very ill-informed and I was very, very unaware of the political spectrum and how that relates to some of his work, specifically something like Gran Torino.
Yes.
So that's a review that I'm not extremely proud of. So if anybody reads it and they think that I'm out of whack, just believe me, I've fucking learned. I'm very sorry. I think like anybody, we've had to learn how to read the spectrum differently.
Absolutely.
And the other thing that happened was, I think the big thing that happened really was after I finished that series, I was trying to figure out another subject to do, and Hitchcock had always been something I was fascinated with, and wanted an excuse to go back through everything, because I had been through everything pretty much beforehand, whether through bootleg or the Universal releases or the scant Warner Brothers releases. And so I said to myself, all right, I'm going to do this. And I was going to do articles and occasional podcasts. And then at a certain point, the podcasts overwhelmed the articles, and the articles just went away completely.
Okay.
They just completely went away. Yeah. The amount of research going into it, one thing that I learned from the Clint Eastwood thing that I knew I needed to incorporate it into the Hitchcock thing was addressing modern context and addressing the outdated tropes in Hitchcock films specifically, because Hitchcock has a lot of clout in the film community for the way women are portrayed in his films as like female heroes, or female characters with range and dynamic traits. Yep. But that's also shrouded in a big factor regarding this personification of Hitchcock's perfect woman, or specifically just like idealizing like the Hitchcock blonde, if you will, which has a lot of baggage attached to it. And Hitch has a lot of angles to him. He's not just one person. There's a lot of nuance when it comes to any person, and Hitch, like many, had his positives and his negatives. And I think that it was important to not try to throw the films under the bus and just say like, well, no, it's just bad, just don't watch it. It's like, no, there's a reason why the film has been in the conversation for so long. You should discuss what's wrong with it, but you also need to appreciate what it is doing. And I think that what I've hopefully done with it is tried to create a community that that allows for that discussion rather than just sit in the mindset of thinking you know what's right. Because I did that. I had that mistake with Clint, and I didn't want to do this again. Yeah, definitely. And so after that wrapped up, the Cadillac, the Cadillac on top of this whole journey. That's not a phrase. The Cadillac
it is now. The Cadillac on top of that journey, baby.
The cream of the crop at the end of the Hitchcock series, which I already kind of planned this as far back as the beginning of it. Yeah. But so like I'd reached out to Adam Roach, and I had communicated with him on Twitter prior to this whole endeavor as a fan of Attaboy and Secret History. And I sent him a message, and I said, I don't know if you remember me, but I've wanted to interview you for years on Real Nerds, and I have my own Hitchcock thing now, so I'm wondering, would you want to come down for one of the episodes or one of the final episodes? And he said, I'd love to. what's the name of it? And I said, The Chambly Silhouette. And he's just like, good title. And I didn't respond back.
Yeah.
For months because I was still nervous about fully asking him.
Yeah.
So I kept doing the podcast rather than I wanted to make sure I got it done. Mm-hmm. And around December, I had left my job due to stressful circumstances involving a very toxic coworker. And I was sitting in the library working on a cut for some video work that I was working on for a feature project that we had done a pitch reel for.
Yeah.
And I wrote him an email in the library, and I just said, like, hey, I don't know if you remember me, but the podcast idea that I was telling you about, it expanded into something even bigger, and this is what it is. It's called The Chambly Silhouette. It's a chat show kind of conversation, breaking down Hitchcock films. I want to get you on to talk about Hitch as a whole, and kind of have you help me summarize it. And God bless this guy. Adam responded pretty damn immediately.
Yeah.
And he's just like, I remember you, of course. And we set up a date, and we did the interview a week or two before COVID really slammed down on the U.S.
Yeah.
So they were already dealing with it in the UK. So I was like telling him, like, well, I hope everything's going all good over there. And I not even thinking in the back of my head what was about to happen.
Yep.
But I got it on there, and I saved it for an August release on the month of Hitchcock's birthday. And
nice.
We got a really good conversation going in that episode, which is the culmination really of the amazing guests that I had before him.
Yeah.
I had a lot of my friends come to support me on that project. And Adam doing it was one of the greatest honors of my life.
That's awesome.
And what's even more amazing is he shared that episode with people, and he helped me connect with a world of fellow Golden Age Hollywood fans that I had never hoped to meet in my life. Like, I've got friends out of this, like Stacy, B, and Smokey, and Kev, and all these wonderful all these wonderful folks from my film club that I attend, that Adam runs. Adam runs this film club out of his podcast.
Wow.
Where they show a Golden Age Hollywood movie a week, and it's just it's my weekend retreat, and I get to hang out with these friends from all across the world.
Hell yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, so that's been a big blessing with it. But Bally-who came out of Chambly, so I wanted to continue doing this, and I was going to do John Huston next, but I wanted to do titles in between while I prepared John Huston, and so that's how Bally-who got started, was tackling catalog titles and having laughs with them while also learning lessons, both things that we take from those films of the past and put into today, while also reckoning with the harder elements of the past.
Nice.
Which is like, it's feasibly a lesson that you could have applied to not just the Hitchcock series, but also to the Eastwood series, where you're addressing like this problematic material, not even as far back as 90 years ago. Shoot, you could do it as far back as 10 years ago.
10 years ago, that was...
And so to me, like, that's what Bally-who has become, is that it's become like this little place to really get to the bottom of what makes a film a legacy title. And so it's been that kind of treat. And you and Anthony have been on. We talked about The Last Man on Earth, which we really didn't have like a lot of like problematic issues of the past to discuss in that film. It's very, very straightforward. I think if anything, we were talking about the idea of like what an adaptation means to the author, and talking about like how this is one of many iterations of this story, and here's why this one stands out as opposed to others. But I also took the opportunity with starting that show to spread my love of Jack Benny, the comedian from radio. And I have several episodes of the show dedicated to him. And on episode 39 of the show, it's a 3-hour and 30-minute affair where I basically tell a couple of Jack's stories and DJ a couple of episodes of his. So it's like a starter pack for people. Like, if they really want to know why I like this guy, like, all you got to do is just go to that episode, and you can listen to some examples of not just his comedy, but also his love of classical music. So,
hell yeah! You send me a link of that too. I'll put that in the description too because that sounds awesome.
Absolutely, and I go into as much of the context as I possibly can without breaking down. Otherwise, we'd be there for 6 hours. But I keep going through this subject. I already booked today an episode on another one of his films, which has an actress in it that's involved in one of the most contentious films of the last 2 years, Gone with the Wind. But the actress Hattie Mcdaniel was in several other films playing similar maid roles, and she does that in a Jack movie, and it's not one of Jack's best movies, but not necessarily because of Jack. It has a lot to do with what Jack's being asked to do in that movie.
Right.
But Hattie McDaniel's in it, and you're watching a stereotype of that era that is not pleasant to look at, and it's wrong then, wrong today.
Yeah.
And watching it, what I would hope to do with that episode is to actually expand more into Hattie McDaniel's story as a result of it. So that's been what the show is up to this point. We're going to do John Huston sometime next year. It's a given. I've spent too much time doing side research into him that I've got to take that plunge. So, but yeah, and I'm still on Real Nerds each week, so I've just never stopped really.
That's amazing. I was gonna say, like, have you ever? Is there a time that you're not being recorded, or is it just 24/7? You're on camera.
I don't know. When I say, you tell me. I mean, the last month, 2 months has been crazy because I've been regularly guest hosting for Punk Rock Horror Podcast out in here in Colorado as well. So I'm technically on 3 shows, and now on this one, I'm on a 4th. So the last couple months have gotten very, very busy.
Sounds like it.
I love talking with people. I like talking with friends. I love chatting with the folks that have inspired me as well as, gotten to know me and come aboard and done stuff for the show too. Like, I like giving back where I can. And but also it's just, you guys put on a really good show. So like, I have no problem taking time out of my night before I've got to go up for a morning shift because I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go to sleep knowing I had a wonderful conversation with a positive person in the room, a virtual room, if you will. So
I told my wife almost the exact same thing tonight. She was, she's like, "Who are you recording this podcast with?" I was like, "It's Zach." I was like, "Didn't you just do that like the other day?" And I was like, "Yeah, but
he's
Zach's got a great energy and like
he swoggled us into another appearance."
Yeah. Hey, I'll do every sci-fi movie that qualifies for being on your show. Let's be honest.
Yeah, no. Well, there's plenty that I want to get you guys on for. It's not a sci-fi movie, but I really want to get you guys on for It's a Wonderful Life.
I'd be more than okay with that.
The only other person that I would want to do that episode would be Adam Roach because his other show, Attaboy Clarence, it's titled for that phrase.
Right.
But It's a Wonderful Life to me is the ultimate pop-timistic movie. Like, that's the thing. Like, it is like...
It definitely is.
it really puts poptimism to its ultimate test.
It's true.
You think about
we might have to stop doing the podcast, though. It's going to outshine us so much. We're going to have to be like, well...
It makes me realize that, like, if I was to do a fake poster for it, like, one of you guys would be Jimmy Stewart, one of you would be Zuzu, and I would superimpose my face onto Mr. Potter.
Yeah, I like that a lot. That's more than okay with me.
Bailey. So yeah, but yeah. So in short, I'm not on mic all the time, but I am on mic a lot. I do filmmaking too, so when I'm not doing that, I'm editing and coming up with a new idea of how to spend more money than I don't have. So.
Well, that's just life, right? Got to stay busy and broke, the two B's of life. Yeah. So, so I have one more question I'm going to ask you, and then we'll move on to some ads, and then we'll come on back for a little close up. So as we mentioned, Anthony and I have been on the show. Well, we've been on twice now because we're special like that, Mm-hmm. But I was curious because, as you know, I have not seen a lot of Golden Age stuff. Right. So I would like to
not
get
right. That's not me. That's mean. I apologize. That's that's cool because it means that you're going to be able to have fun discovering these things.
Yes. Well, and I was going to say one of the things, especially for the sci-fi ones, it's been fun for me is seeing some of the practical effects that are like in my mind I'd be like, well, that's going to look stupid because I know that CG looks beautiful and wonderful and flawless. But some of the stuff that they pull off in these old movies is amazing. It's like, I would never have thought of that. And I love, that is one of the things I absolutely love about listening to Ballyhoo, is you like, how much research would you say you do is the real question that I want to know. How much research would you say you do for a single episode of Ballyhoo? Or do you just know all of this? Are you just an encyclopedia of movie knowledge?
That seems to be the general thought with people. The answer is not encyclopedia. So I have a lot of inbred knowledge, but my deeper dives have forced me within the last couple of years to do much more research, and not just rely on the same stories I've heard 500 times about the same particular films that I love.
Yeah.
So if we're doing, like this month, doing Universal Monsters, with in addition to The Thing from Another World, which has already been spoiled, that's going to be the episode you guys come on for the end of Halloween.
Yeah.
Universal Monsters was very easy to do because I engaged in those films so much that the history of them had been kind of born into my brain.
Yeah.
And Adam's series on Universal Monsters opened up that door even further 5 years ago when I heard it. 5 or 6 years ago. So like my research into that subject has really become taking a further step where I don't know what's going on. So I love the shop around the corner is a good example of a situation where there isn't as much to go over with what's accessible to me as I thought there would be. I love Ernst Lubitsch for a film called To Be or Not to Be, which has Jack Benny and Carol Lombard in her final on-screen role before she was killed in a plane accident in 1942.
Oh wow!
And the shop around the corner is one of the most influential romantic comedies of all time. And I thought when I had first seen that movie, I liked it, but as I got older and then I went back to it, particularly with a film club screening, I was like, this movie is perfect. I would like to talk about this on a Ballyhoo, and thankfully one of our guests, Hope Sears, really wanted to do it. Nice. So I was trying to do research, and I got the updated Warner Archive Blu-ray, and only to discover there was no special features whatsoever tacked on for that thing. There was a theatrical trailer, which is a really cool piece of marketing information that shows Frank Morgan introducing the trailer. And Frank Morgan, who people will know from The Wizard of Oz as the titular wizard. He was also an actor of many different gamuts and ranges, and Shop Around the Corner is one of his best performances. He'll break your heart as well as he will make you laugh your ass off. So in doing research, it mainly came through the form of anecdotes and also expounding upon the life of Lubitsch himself. So where I can, I try to find a story. If production info is light, I try to focus on some of the key players. And from there, like anybody of the internet age, I will start on Wikipedia to get a base level. And then I will start digging further and figuring out, okay, are there documentaries about them? Is there a book that I can find with quick access? Are there articles through Wikipedia that are properly sourced that I can check to see if they exist, and then actually look at the article itself?
Right.
I'm not an expert in research. It's also why I claim to know, or why I make no claim to the idea that I am some kind of behemoth of knowledge. I want to be a gateway for people to get into these movies the way I do.
Yeah. Which, by the way, I'm sorry to interrupt. You're doing a great job of, because a lot like this, the stuff that we've watched with you is stuff that I never would have just gone and picked up on my own if it wasn't for watching these specifically for the podcast. So it's awesome.
I appreciate that, because that's the main takeaway. It's like, I don't know if you ever watch a behind the scenes documentary of your favorite movie, like a behind the scenes featurette. Even if it's an older movie, like let's say Star Wars, for example, it's not necessarily. It feels older now because it's now close to 50 years of Star Wars. Yikes!
Yeah.
But one of the cool things about Star Wars is that they did keep their history intact to a point by talking about the productions of their films. They had the Empire of Dreams documentary come out with the DVD. I'd like to hopefully have the same amount of information as those behind the scenes history documentaries and short featurettes would be for those DVDs that came out for Golden Age Hollywood movies, specifically in the 90s when DVD started to hit big.
Yes.
And I think that's hopefully the best thing we can do, while also incorporating some of the best part of podcasting, which is having a conversation with your friends. And, I'm not a purist with anything in life. And for all the things that you can take with a austerity and sincerity, there's also room to poke it with a stick a little bit and have some fun with. Golden Age Hollywood has some outdated tropes, obviously, but there's also like some questions about the way logic jumps happen and story jumps happen.
Right.
It's never to denigrate the film. It is specifically to have fun and help people shred that veneer of like classicism and elitism that comes with Golden Age Hollywood. It's just like, well, you've got to be snooty to like this. It's like, no, you don't. You don't have to be snooty to like Golden Age Hollywood. I am a C-level high school student and a college dropout. I am not elitist whatsoever. You can love these movies as much as I do.
Damn right.
And I think that's been the goal for the most part. Now, Jack, though, because I have an inordinate amount of knowledge of Jack, when I do a Jack episode, I will get detailed, I will get geeky, and those episodes become 4 hours long. Casablanca was one where I knew the history so well that I was able to give that information. One film that we did recently that I did it with a guest named Pam Munter, and she was an author of a series of short stories and plays about women icons in Golden Age Hollywood that described the sexism and the misogyny abound in Golden Age Hollywood through stories of actual figures told in a fictitious style. So she interlaces fact with truth, or fact with fiction. And it's a good thought exercise. She brought to the show a movie called Show Business from 1944 with Eddie Cantor in it. And first of all, that film has a lot of problems with a peculiar amount of blackface in it, which is not it's not peculiar really when you consider that Eddie Cantor got a lot of his show business start from doing blackface acts like that with Burt Williams in the vaudeville circuit. And for those who don't know who Eddie Cantor is, he was a vaudeville entertainer and comedian from the 20s, 30s, and 40s, who you would now know today as a character on Boardwalk Empire. But before that, he was an actual show business figure and luminary. But that film, I didn't have much information to go off of apart from the information in Pam's book, which had interlaced facts into it. And also one of the stars, which was Joan Davis. And that was the main reason she wanted to talk about this film, was because of Joan Davis. Doing research into Joan Davis, I had no idea who she was. She, apart from one of her films with Abbott and Costello, I had really virtually no clue of her existence. She had a television show in the 50s that she herself was one of the head producers of. So she ran her own show.
Wow.
And it got torpedoed, and more than likely misogyny within the business was a good catalyst for that. And it gets flipped on its own head, and she ends up being called a bitch. And which is the most denigrating thing imaginable.
Of course.
And so I when I went into the episode with the education that I had, I was like, okay, we'll talk about Joan, we'll talk about Eddie, and then we'll break down the film and what it has to say about vaudeville. And going off of what knowledge we both have of what vaudeville is supposed to be and how it's represented in this particular piece. So not every episode has the same amount of information flowing through it. We work with what we can. Abbott and Costello was a weird bag because we talked about a film that didn't have like a ton of production history behind it, but Abbott and Costello has such a history that it was pretty easy to fill in a lot of gaps. So and that's what I expect going forward. Like Thing from Another World, I thought there'd be a commentary on that Blu-ray when it came through Warner Archive. There wasn't. And so thankfully I dug deeper into articles and write-ups and essays about the film, and that's where I found the one from the American Society of Cinematographers, which is what I used to help us grab some information, and also going through Howard Hawks and Christian Nyby, and specifically that controversy about the authorship of that film. And so that's been the big thing. But like when we're doing Universal Monsters, this book right here, David J. Scull's The Monster Show.
Ooh.
That book has been an immense guide.
Nice.
For me. And so I used this a lot for the first 2 episodes of the Bally-Boo review month this month. So
nice.
I get the information from where I can to give you a condensed version of it, but hopefully it compels you to be like, I want to research this more myself.
Yeah.
And hopefully tell me, you're full of shit, Zach. This actually didn't happen. I'm like, well, I'm sorry. Sometimes I'm fallible like any other human being.
Absolutely. Well, and I think for a lot of people, especially people, well, I shouldn't say especially people like me, but my wife and I, we get so into the behind the scenes stuff. Like there's days where she's like, do you want to watch a movie? I'm like, let's just watch behind the scenes stuff instead. And it's like, there's something so cool about just watching behind the scenes content.
Do you have a favorite one?
Oh God.
I think I've got one that's not Golden Age Hollywood related. I'll tell you that one.
Yeah, well, you do yours, and I'll sit here and look like I'm thinking.
So, I love. We talked about Halloween earlier.
Yeah.
The Halloween series has a lot of great behind the scenes featurettes. Before Scream Factory got their hands on everything, Halloween did something. They did 2 big featurettes: Halloween Unmasked 2000, which has these cheap 2000s graphics, and it's got these interviews that are clearly cut from the EPKs of other Halloween interviews and movies to tell the story of John Carpenter. And the way they're approaching the subject, it does educate you on the basic points of indie filmmaking and like how they had virtually no money to make that movie when they first made it. Another great one is another John Carpenter movie is The Thing. John Carpenter, The Thing, Terror Takes Shape, the making of The Thing. It's an hour and 24 minutes. That's a lot. That's a lot.
I'm writing that down. I didn't know that was a thing.
If it's not on YouTube, I will find a way to show you where you can get it really cheap.
Cool.
But it is like that is one of the best behind the scenes docs of all time. Not even a question. And also, it is Golden Age Hollywood related, but the making of Psycho. Alfred Hitchcock. The Psycho documentary is an hour and 20 minutes, something like that. And it's one of those last capsules you have of people like Janet Leigh and Robert Boyle talking on camera. So it's very, very cool to watch that. So I get what you're saying. There are days when I just want to pop on the BTS stuff.
It's so satisfying. I think one of the ones I enjoyed more recently was some of the stuff for Baby Driver. Ooh. I love that movie. But some of especially I'm a huge nerd when it comes to audio mixes and being timed up with visual stuff. So one of the chase scenes, a lot of the scenes are queued up to be timed with certain things happening during the music, but there's one scene, you've seen Baby Driver.
Yes, I have.
Okay, so the scene where Baby runs the truck into John Hamm and his girlfriend, and then there's like the cars and the shootout and all that stuff.
Right.
It's a Queen song that's playing. I don't remember exactly which one, but there's I think a 15 to 20 second segment where every time you hear the snare hit, a gunshot is made, and it syncs so beautifully. It's I got chills thinking about it.
So when I picked up the Blu-ray for Baby Driver, I didn't dig through it a bunch. Because when I got that Blu-ray was when we got some unfortunate news about one of its stars.
Oh God, I know.
But that aside, but I love the amount of stuff that Edgar Wright packs into his Blu-rays.
It's amazing.
The Scott Pilgrim coverage on that Blu-ray is amazing.
Yes, so good.
The Hot Fuzz 3-disc DVD Ultimate Edition that got put out before the big Blu-ray pack.
Yeah.
That thing is incredible. 5 different commentaries.
He knows what people want.
He knows what people. I think he's got to take that cue from Kevin Smith because
100%.
Kevin's documentaries were very inspirational.
Yeah.
The Snowball Effect, the making of Clerks, is one of the finest BTS docs of all time, with the exception of a certain interview by a certain pig at the end of it by the name of Harvey Weinstein. But you can fast forward through that if you'd like. But I mean, that, and also the Back to the Well, the making of Clerks 2, I think was a big one, because that was like a very recent one. So it's like, why would you make a documentary about something that recent? Rob Zombie did this with his Halloween movie. He made like a 4-hour making of documentary that's on the Blu-rays.
Really?
Yeah, it's very, very honest.
I'm sure it is.
And as a result, there was one shot for his second Halloween movie that we'll never get, because more than likely the Weinsteins buried that shit.
Oh, boy.
Because he was not happy about making that movie. Rob did not want to make that movie. From what it sounds like. I'm not going to claim to speak out of turn for Rob Zombie, because I'm a fan of his.
Right.
But, or at least I'm a fan to a point. But there's some films of his where I'm nonplussed. But Devil's Rejects, which is a movie that watch with caution out there.
Yes, 100%.
Very, very good movie for what it's doing. But there is another 4-hour documentary called 30 Days in Hell, the making of Devil's Rejects. That one is very interesting because it's his second film, and he's clearly not working with the same... He's not having the same issues that he had on House of 1,000 Corpses, but there's other issues that present themselves.
Right.
And so, like, you get to learn the process. And I think that that's really effective for people, is learning the process.
Absolutely. 100%.
It demystifies the process, ultimately.
Yeah.
So I got an ad for you guys. You ready for this, Brent?
Oh, I'm so ready.
I think you're ready.
Sell me.
I think you're ready. Now, I want to ask you, has the lack of Golden Age Hollywood stars in your life got you in a tizzy?
Oh, 100%.
Do you need more than just your daily viewings of Pre-Code Danger, Nefarious Noir, and Laugh-A-Minute Screwball on TCM?
Yeah.
There's got to be a way to carry these legends with you wherever you go. Well, I'm here to announce Golden Age Pocket Picture Pals.
Ooh.
Golden Age Pocket Picture Pals are the latest adult toy that isn't designed to arouse areas deemed immoral by the Hays Code. These Picture Pocket Pals are really awesome. They are clones derived from the graves of these beloved stars and designed to fit in your pocket for on-the-go Golden Age fun.
Yes, I love this.
Yeah, just great. It gets better, guys. I'm going to tell you, you want to learn how to act like a wise guy during a conflict at a bar? Just let Pocket James Cagney come at him with his blazes of insults that will send your foe packing home for his mother's house. Hey, you want to be the life of the party with all the scares and all the laughs this Halloween season? Because I know we're all getting back in that room, guys. You know? Well, our Vincent Price model is retrofitted with different designs and variants. Whether you want the terror of Dr. Henry Jared in the House of Wax or the tortured soul of Morgan in Last Man on Earth. I mean, now, I know what you're thinking, guys out there. Not all of you are convinced. Well, I'll listen. I'll have you listen to a sampler. Listen to the way our Jimmy Stewart model helps a satisfied customer pass city legislation with his interchangeable Mr. Smith Goes to Washington wardrobe. Now, say here, the pothole is not just our problem. It will be your problem and Frank's problem and Bill's problem. And until the people of this town have the foresight and decency to demand that they have proper drivable roads and realize it's not a lost cause. Now, one more thing while we're here at this town hall meeting, I want to address our current laws regarding search warrants. It's dastardly to think that search warrants are standing in the way for us ransacking Raymond Burr's house whenever he has clearly killed one of his spouses. We've got to stop that madman. Yeah. Jimmy, you inspirational figure, you. And now you can have him in the palm of your hand. Yes, all these inspirational figures from the past and captivating stars of yesteryear can be yours. And thanks to genetic engineering from Dr. Pretorius' Institute of Technology, only the cleanest performances have been left intact, so you don't have to reckon with and learn from America's dark past of racism and sexism like evolved human beings would. The perfect gift for your grandfather and grandmother who only want to remember the sunshine of yesterday with all that gloom of reality's cloud. So take it from our Bogart. So just take it from our Bogart model and order today, or you'll regret it. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon and for the rest of your life.
That was excellent, sir.
Yeah, I know. I think it's a wonderful one.
That was great.
I can't wait for the deluxe editions of these clones to come out so you can have a little Lou Costello running around going chick chick chick.
That was fantastic.
Yeah,
I'm very impressed.
Oh,
it's funny. I feel like I'm usually impressed with guests for ads.
No, I'm looking forward to what you've got for us today, sir. Because
well, I didn't even write anything. I was like trying to think. I was like, what do I want to do? If you want to throw something at me too, if you want to give me an improvised idea, I take those.
Oh my god! If you've got one, I had one that I always wanted to pitch to you guys, and I just thought it might be too negative. Was the Wambulance?
The Wambulance.
The Wambulance. So it's for people who get uptight about their fandoms being taken over by progressive values. Like, if are you in danger? Listen, are you in danger because your favorite franchise has been taken over by a group that doesn't look like you and doesn't expound masculine values? We understand your pain, and we're here to help you with a special service. It's called the Wambulance.
The Wambulance.
The Wambulance will come to your house, tend to you with care, give you a lollipop, and tell you the world will be okay, while showing you the original cuts of the 1977 release of Star Wars, reminding you that Kathleen Kennedy no longer exists. So if you have trouble with this, if you're worried about reboots that mangle with your childhoods and grasp at your memories, just remember the Wambulance is here to rescue you.
This is great. I don't even have to do an ad now. I just got an ad-free night.
Thank you.
This is
I'm
great.
very happy that idea was received well.
Oh, Jesus. Perfect.
I'm just like, I really hope this is optimistic as all hell.
That was perfect. That was great.
Wonderful.
Okay, cool. So I guess I'll do our serious ad real quick. And for our real sponsor tonight, I'm actually not even going to do our real sponsor that we would be doing. I have been going to therapy a lot lately.
Yes,
which is wonderful.
I go every week, sir.
Excellent. I wish I could go every week. My therapist is just too busy.
Yeah,
but
I understand.
They all are right now because guess what? COVID.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
And that's the point I want to drive home right now, everyone. Take care of yourself. Take care of those around you. Remember that you are important. Remember that you can do something good. And you're not a failure.
Remember, guys, you're all better than me. So you get out there and you be the best person you can be.
Be the best person you can be.
Yeah, but seriously, guys, if you have any issues, there are professionals that can be consulted. There are people who care, and there are people who want to hear what you have to say and share your pain with you and help you get through a dark time.
100%. That's the only way to do it is with people. So
yep,
we love you.
We love you. We're a happy family with a great big hug. Oh my God, I started singing that song. Oh,
good old Barney. Well, see you on the other side of this ad.
Woo.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. We're back with Zach, the Beast Eastman.
Anthony didn't come back.
Wow, that's all right. You know,
I'll tell you, I miss Anthony right now because I love the spark. You guys had that spark of joy with the Matrix Resurrections discussion, and I was just like, I told you guys and when we were chatting about this prior to the thing from another world, but I don't read fan theory anymore or speculation, but I made an exception for Anthony talking about the Matrix Resurrections.
Yes.
It's like,
I'm so excited.
Even if he's right and he spoiled it for me, I will gladly blank it from my memory. I just want to hear some passion for that because it's been so wonderful seeing that trailer and getting excited.
I'm so excited. It's going to be so. I can't wait. So before I let you go, Zach, I have one thing I kind of want to go over about Ballyhoo because Ballyhoo is probably like one of my top threes right now because I've been listening to you and our now mutual friends because of you, by the way, over at Pop Culture Brews.
Yeah, part of the pod gang now, according to that episode.
Hell yeah.
It's a very interesting opening that then goes into a very interesting talk about penis.
I don't know if I've talked about I've talked about penis in pretty much every podcast I've been on.
That episode, guys, if you have not listened to it out there in Pop-timistic land, God damn it, that was
it's
so
pretty
funny.
good. Yeah, it's pretty good. I enjoyed it. We had a good time.
Mm-hmm.
They're the next ones I have to hit up to be on the show, so they need to come on too.
Yeah.
But you just recently, well, when this comes out, you'll be wrapping up with your Bally-Boo month, and I'm curious because you've been doing a lot of podcasts lately. How many Bally-Boos did you do? Did you do?
Oh, for the month of October?
Yeah.
Oh, it's funny. There actually is a story about how that actually happened because it wasn't supposed to happen.
Oh, good.
So I had already scheduled Bride of Frankenstein with Erin Mullane because I had just finished working with her on my latest short film that I did with Risa Scott with a script written by Hayden Winston. And she and Matthew Murback are in the movie, and I got Matthew on for Mary Poppins, the Mary Poppins episode that came out recently, where we went for nearly 5 hours.
Yes.
And Aaron already did Bride of Frankenstein, and I thought that it'd be cool if we could try to get more horror, but I didn't think it was going to happen. So there was a couple of weeks where I just kind of languished in wait. Yeah. And then at a certain point around early September, I got a little bit more motivated to at least be like, well, I'm going to save Aaron's episode till October, but I'd like to get one more horror title if possible. Yeah. And so I contacted Matt Willix, who's been on the show twice talking about Casablanca and Rio Rita, and I'm like, okay, man, you've wanted to do it for a long time now. Do you want to do Universal Monsters? And he's just like, yes, I want to do Dracula and Spanish Dracula. And I was like, that's awesome. And for folks who don't know out there, Dracula from 1931 is the first Universal monster movie. Like the traditional, what we know as the Universal monsters. Technically, it really begins as far back as Phantom of the Opera and Hunchback of Notre Dame. But and several other films prior that coalesce into that formation. Right. But when they made Dracula in 1931 with Bela Lugosi, directed by Todd Browning, at night, after the day crew had left for Todd Browning's Dracula, a night crew would come in, directed by George Melford, with Paul Kerner as the supervising producer, to make a Spanish-language version of Dracula that would be released in Spanish territories. And the reason for this was subtitling and dubbing had not been a perfected art yet. Subtitling you could do as intertitles, really, but it would basically be in the form of a silent film. When sound came into the picture in the motion picture industry, not every theater got equipped right away. Right. So from 1927 up until the early mid-1930s, not every theater in America is wired for sound. Even if you get it on the East and West Coast, somewhere in the middle parts of America are still running silent films as far into the early 30s. Since dubbing had not been proved effective yet as of late, it got put into the minds of several studio executives that the people who would do Spanish language versions of their own productions would be the first to transcend those barriers and make big money. So Dracula was one of those productions that got put into effect. Yeah. And Paul Kerner really, really wanted to one-up Carl Laemmle Jr. in the eyes of Carl Sr. because Kerner was kind of a golden child and a possible successor to Laemmle Sr. until Laemmle Sr. gave Laemmle Jr. the studio as a 21st birthday present. Yeah. So, which, like in the grand scheme of nepotism, it's the least egregious act in history. I will tell you that right now. But so they did a Spanish language version overnight, and the Spanish version, in the eyes of many fans, is a much better movie than the Bela Lugosi version because Todd Browning did not know how to direct a sound movie at that time. This was his first sound movie, and it is janky. It is lacking style and finesse. Whereas George Melford and Paul Kerner in that team really went to town with the camera movement and what you could do with sound film and what you could do with horror filmmaking. Yeah. And as a result, the Spanish Dracula has more going for it in the way of style and technique, but it doesn't have Lugosi.
Interesting.
So both films have their strengths and weaknesses. So that's what we did on that episode. And after we wrapped it up, I kind of sat with it like, okay, we'll do this, and then maybe I'll, do we'll do some other random episodes. Yeah. It just kind of finally dawned on me. I'm just like, I wanted to do another episode with Anthony and Brent, and I know that Ryan, my co-host on Real Nerds, has wanted to talk about Universal Monsters, and he and I both love the Invisible Man a lot because the Universal Monsters, out of all of them, Invisible Man has the most kills because he derails a train.
Yes. Yeah.
So we wanted to talk about that, and I like Uno O'Connor talk, so I'll do that all damn day.
Hell yeah.
And so I called up Ryan first to be like, hey, you want to do Invisible Man in 2 weeks? He's like, sure. Yeah, just let me know when I need to be there.
Nice.
So he was already ready to go.
Oh, yeah.
And then I got into touch with you and Anthony and Brent, and I was just like, all right, so it's going to be a month of horror now. And that's when I went back to redo the logo to call it the Bally-Boo. And that instigated a whole logo change. So now I changed the font and reformatted everything.
Yeah.
But that's how it came about, which was we're doing 5 titles in 4 episodes.
Wow.
So every October now we're going to be covering 4 to 5 titles, like depending on if we do double features and whatnot. My plan is to do 3 Universal Monsters and then 1 non-Universal related horror movie, or maybe 2 and 2.
Yeah.
But Universal Monsters have so much in the canon that it would be cool every year to try to tackle a different set of films.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, so like next year we'll probably do the first Frankenstein, we'll probably do the Mummy, and we'll probably do the Wolfman. And then for the side horror film, I'm very much considering bringing in Mad Love into the proceedings with Peter Lorre. Because I would like to talk about that in a Halloween setting because it makes sense for me.
Absolutely.
Or doing a serial like The Phantom Creeps, but that would require a lot of people to sit down with 265 minutes of old-timey movie serials, which I can do.
Yes.
I don't know if you can, but I can't.
My son wouldn't be happy, probably.
I mean, he'd giggle at the images. He'd be like, or that robot from Rob Zombie uses in his stage shows in The Phantom Creeps would kill him. But yeah, so that's how many have been done thus far. But like other than that, like no other month has a theme month per se.
Right. Right. I love it. I think it's a great idea. It's a fun little switch up for October. I'm real excited. Real excited to hear all of them.
Yep, it's gonna rock. And additionally, you might get a little bit of spillover because Tony Gross, who was on the Johnny Dollar episode, is going to be coming back to talk about Suspense, the radio show Suspense, and we picked a Bela Lugosi episode.
Ooh.
Yeah, but yeah, and hopefully I can gather enough episodes to finish up the year because it's not everything's fully planned in advance. So like, I am still like shooting from the seat of my pants, but somehow I've managed to keep this for the most part, weekly show, which is
that's amazing.
So I have no idea how.
Yeah, we did it for I feel like we did 3 weeks where we did it all 1 week after another, and then I just we failed. You're better than us, Zach.
No,
we said it.
It's honestly because it's honestly having no life. Just trust me. Find some way for me to gain some semblance of a life, and that show will go to bi-weekly.
Yeah. Sometimes why do they get why do they get a wife and kid?
Because you're a caring, adoring husband, and you love your family, and that's one of the great gifts that you can have in life.
Yes. You're so positive.
Here, do you want me to bring some golden age wisdom?
Oh, yeah.
You know, kid, sometimes there's more to life than just podcasting. Sometimes it comes down to matters of the heart. Something, wise guy, something.
That's the kind of wisdom you can expect on Ballyhoo Review and Real Nerds Podcast.
While I punch this man who insulted my wife.
Excellent. Wow. Well, Zach, I had a delightful time. I'm so glad you came here tonight.
This is fantastic.
2 podcasts with you in 72 hours, maybe? I don't even remember when the last one was.
Oh my God.
Sunday? Was it Monday?
So Sunday we recorded. Today's Wednesday. So a little bit longer than 72 hours.
A little bit longer. But thank you so much for joining.
Of course.
Please tell everyone right now where they can find you. Mm-hmm. How to listen to you, how to find you on social media, your address, blood type, anything that you want to give those people, our little Pop-Tarts.
My blood type is Martian. My address is none of your damn business. And you can find us on, you can find Yesteryear Ballyhoo Review on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and I'm assuming that extends into other podcatchers, but I am looking in how to get us into iHeartRadio and other stuff, and just doing that hard work. The Shamley Silhouette, which is the Hitchcock series that I did, is available on its own feed called the YBR Presents feed, which will become very important next year. But I will give those links to Brent to share with you. You can find us on Twitter at Ballyhoo Review. That's REVUE. And on Instagram, we are at Ballyhoo Review Pod. And we're on Facebook under Yesteryear Ballyhoo Review, but it's the least active of all the pages. But it's there, and I'm working to get better at it. And Real Nerds Podcast, every week, I, Brad Haig, Ryan Frost, and Corinne Westman go see a new movie and podcast our experience of the world. You can find us at Real Nerds on both Instagram and Twitter. And you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, iHeartRadio, all the major podcast apps that's there. This week, we just did No Time to Die, and we talked about the very shocking things that happened in that film.
Oh my God. So I can't listen to it yet because I haven't seen the movie.
I'm a casual Bond guy, and I was impressed.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They did some stuff with that character, and I'm like, you did that? You were allowed to do that? Okay. Carrie Fukunaga's got the beat down on the most unique Bond movie I've ever seen in terms of what it's the ballsiest. Not unique, the ballsiest. And next week, I believe we are doing Halloween Kills. And stay tuned because we are doing a film explosion where we will be counting down our top 10 films of 2011. That's a year where a lot of my list has changed because a lot of figures decided to be jerks over the last 5 years. Yeah.
Like, wouldn't it be cool if people that were famous could just not be pieces of shit?
You know, it's funny. We did it, Bally. Well, I'll wrap this up on a positive note about how you view Golden Age Hollywood, because I think that's a good way to take this away, because it's very easy for us to get negative. I did an episode with our friend Adam Jewell for 4 hours on The Searchers with John Wayne and directed by John Ford. Two figures who have some of the most contentious history, not just from their racial attitudes, but also their behavior when it comes to patriotism and American values. And what's amazing is that when you separate out a lot of these older figures from Golden Age Hollywood, you are able to find where the value is in watching that piece, but also you find that it's not all just pieces like this. There are a lot of films out there from that era that are so wonderful to watch that not just one figure can bleed into your entire experience. Yes, there are a lot of terrible people in that Golden Age of Hollywood sphere, as there are in today's Hollywood sphere. But there are still a lot of wonderful people doing a lot of wonderful work. Like the crew members who deserve better working conditions, and that's why they're striking, guys. So don't complain about your Marvel shows being delayed by a month or two, please.
Damn right.
So there is a positivity to take away from it. Is that like the problems of today are similar to the way we look at the problems of yesterday. It's like, yes, there are problems, and you have to address those, and you have to work towards making those better. You can also find the positive things that are strewn about the different culture spheres that you have, whether that is your Marvel and MCUs, or whether it is finding an Abbott and Costello movie, picking it on the off the shelf, and watching that candle gag from Hold That Ghost be repeated in Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. You can find something wonderful to enjoy and care about in there. And 2011, even though there's a couple movies in there that are certainly not on that list anymore, guess what? It just means Hugo by Martin Scorsese went up that list.
Darn right. Deserves it.
Yeah, I agree. Hey guys, that's a wonderful movie that makes me cry because it's about film. It's about film preservation. Anyway,
it's good.
Yeah, it's a kids movie made only for Zach. Which is
excellent.
Insane to give Martin Scorsese that much money to do that.
Yeah, well, it's fine, It's irresponsible. Someone's got to fund the man.
It's the same reason that they gave David Fincher money for Mank. Like, no, I was the only one who was going to watch Mank.
I mean, that's probably accurate. Yeah,
it wasn't made for anybody else, and I still had problems with it because I'm like, that's not how Orson Welles was.
You're like, this isn't quite right.
Yeah, but thank you, Brent. Thank you for welcoming me into the Pop-Tart kingdom.
Of course,
having some wonderful times abound. I hope next time I come back, you, me, and Anthony are all in the room, and we can talk about a certain Thomas A. Anderson who does his taxes and he goes to church and he helps his landlady carry out his garbage.
Isn't that going to be... That's one of the ones that's going to be on HBO, isn't it?
It is. I'm still going to go to the theater because I want to see it.
For sure. Well, see, this is my proposal because I think we'll all want to go see it in theater. We should all go see it in theater and then we should converge and watch it together online.
Ooh.
And then the real fun.
I like it the way Brenta thinks.
Yes. Excellent.
Yes, exactly. We're not being cast in the new Mario movie.
Unfortunately. I don't have a nerd fact this week. So instead, I'll ask you a nerd question. What is the quintessential Jerry Lewis film that I need to see?
The Bellboy.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
The Bellboy.
Nice.
It's primarily it's a classic. It's just every time I hear Jerry Lewis's name, I'm just like, oh, I'd love to talk about how he's a genius. He's a complicated figure. He's a genius, though.
He is complicated.
His Dean Martin, his Martin and Lewis collaborations are a lot of fun. You know what you can do is also look up online. They have some early recordings of their radio show that are a lot of fun to listen to. If you want to hear Dean do his shtick and hear Jerry do his shtick. But the Bellboy is fantastic.
Nice.
And I think that The Nutty Professor is one that I would watch if you're only familiar with the Eddie Murphy one, but it's been a while.
Yeah.
Don't go back to Eddie Murphy's run right away.
Right.
Go watch what Jerry's doing. It's still very damn good.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of people will tell you that like when it's not a contest, I feel like both have their merits.
Right.
But
for sure.
But the Bellboy is the one that I say like, no, that's the one. That's the entry point.
Yeah.
From there, you can go into the Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin collaborations. And a lot of those collections are pretty easy to find. So
hell yeah! See, this is the info I need.
Yeah. Now that being said, tread carefully with Jerry Lewis.
I'll use caution for sure.
He had his own issues.
Yeah.
Also, King of Comedy, Martin Scorsese's movie King of Comedy. It's not a traditional Jerry Lewis Golden Age Hollywood movie, but obviously, but he's very, very good in that movie.
Interesting.
And if any of you liked Joker out there, that's where that movie comes from. Joker comes from that movie and Taxi Driver. So, so I would definitely seek it out for that lineage.
Interesting.
Yeah, start with the Bellboy and then go to the Nutty Professor. Start with the basics.
Easy. Can do, will do.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, it was great having you. And to all you beautiful Pop-Tarts out there, love you.
Bye.
Bye.